grade inflation was beginning to really move forward so that now 80 or 90% of undergraduates get A's. Logan, you and I know that 90 or 80 or 90 don't deserve A's.
You're watching the Spotlight Network, starring Hollywood's newsman,
And if you were just
Logan
trying to trick
Crawford.
investigators, they now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're joined by historian and columnist, one of my favorite guests, one of my favorite writers, Lawrence Clayton. He is the author of The Pushback. It is a timely and provocative collection of essays on America's most pressing cultural and political debates. Drawn from his widely read op-ed columns, this book examines education, public life, faith, and national identity during a deeply divided era. The Pushback challenges readers to think critically, revisit foundational values, and engage thoughtfully with the issues shaping the country today. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank the team at Good River Print and Media for helping us put him in the spotlight today. And we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Lawrence, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you, Logan. It's always a pleasure to be with you and to talk about some things that all of us think are important.
Absolutely, they're important. I think they're more important now than ever before. Talk to us about The Pushback. What should Americans be pushing back on, in your opinion?
The basic argument is that a theory called diversity, equity, and inclusion worked its way into education, especially higher education, about 20 to 30 years ago. And it replaced something that all of us who have been in college or universities, and in fact, at all levels of education, needs to be reinforced. And that is merit. What is it that determines what you are in our world? Okay. And I understand our world is complicated. We have had many, many ups and downs that are fascinating. There are lots of stuff for historians to write about, the Civil War, for example. But merit is the way that most of us learned what was important in education. And by merit, I'm talking about examinations, Logan, papers that you wrote and were corrected, the learning experience that all of us went through. Then DEI came along, and had a good background. And the background was we need to make up for all the deficiencies in our society especially by people who aren't WASPs, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, okay? And that includes Blacks, Latinos, and my mother, by the way, is Chilean, so you're talking with a Latino here, although I don't look like my Mexican gardener, but I am. Not my Mexican gardener, but a Latino.
I know what you mean.
And a lot of people, everything, all those categories, women, transsexuals, people of other backgrounds, and both historic and national. Everybody needs to be treated equally according to the Constitution. And the Constitution, we can easily all go to. I don't want to keep on going here, but the Constitution, as it was written by Jefferson, was all men are created equal with certain rights and responsibilities, but all men weren't really created in an equal environment of merit. Some people are smarter than others. Some people are driven by technology. Some want to be writers. There are all sorts of different ways to measure progress in education, and that was replaced by equity. And diversity, equity, and inclusion. Diversity is good. I like diversity. I like to have different students in my classes. And inclusion means you want to include as many people as possible in the educational, but equity, as it was interpreted by the DEI people, subordinates merit, the ability to perform under pressure to do the things that you have agreed to do. And I always use the argument, and it makes sense to me. I have a stepdaughter who's a plastic surgeon or had plastic. Do you want somebody operating on you in the operating room because they were there for some other reason than they were the best? Okay. Not because
Right.
they were green, black, white, Hispanic, heterosexual, asexual, no sexual, whatever it is that our society has become, which is fine. We're a big country. And I have a son who's a pilot, a corporate pilot. And you want somebody in the left seat, the pilot seat, flying who got there for some other reason. No, I want somebody there who's the best one. And this is what the DEI program, exaggerating all of the values that exist in our world, has really uh, destroyed many portions of higher education. Let me just give you a couple from the book. Great inflation. You know what great inflation is.
Yep.
Yeah, 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 you may have made a few A's in your undergraduate. I
Very
worked
few,
hard for
very
my
few.
B. There you go. I worked hard for my B pluses and as an undergraduate. And by the time we get to the early 21st century, great inflation was beginning to really move forward, so that now 80 or 90% of undergraduates get A's. Logan, you and I know that 90 or 80 or 90 don't deserve A's.
But graduating with 4.75 grade point averages.
Yeah,
I
when
mean, it's like it's above 4.0. How does that happen?
how does
I don't
that
know.
happen? And so that's what the book is about. And I began to sense this as I was teaching. I taught for 40 years at the University of Alabama in the history department. And I said, something's going on here. And it's not right. And I learned about it through my own experiences, but also about listening to people at places like Texas. How about the Naval Academy? The Naval Academy really bought into it. And we got admirals who believe that they should be doing what they're doing because of the color of their skin or their background or their sexual preference. And I'm going, and I was in the Navy for a couple of years, and I said, that's not what determined whether we were going to do something or not. Okay. And you wanted the skill set available for the people who have it to move forward. And that skill set includes everything from writing poetry to learning how to operate a 16 wheeler. It is the learning experience is so important because of what you do. For example, you didn't get to be where you are because you're not good looking guy. Yeah, because he speaks English and he's white and blah, 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 blah. No, no, no. You got to be where you are because of what you do and how well you do it.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the Naval Academy. I was watching the Army Navy game the other day
Yeah, so was
and
I.
watching the people in the audience. Some of these cadets are so little. These girls that are 5 feet tall and 98 pounds or 95 pounds, they don't even look like they could hold a gun, you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, it's almost like wasted space. I want the biggest, baddest people, probably men, in
Mhm.
the military, because those are the ones that are going to be able to pull me out of a building, save me in the event of a catastrophe.
Carry
We
you off the
need,
field. Mhm.
yeah, carry me off the field. Yeah, exactly. Look at sports. My wife always spots this example. In sports, it's not filled with like, okay, we're going to have a 95 pound female. We're going to have a 4'2" Asian man. You're going to get the biggest and the best to be the NFL players, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's
oh,
what we
sure.
see. These
Yeah,
guys are 6'7" and 300 pounds.
yeah, yeah. That's
If you
right.
come up with a woman who's 6'7" and 300 pounds, I'm like, yeah, put her on the team,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, because she deserves to be on a team. And here at Alabama, where football is so big, I always use the kind of an example, which is a little bit exaggerated. We have a big football weekend. Let's say we're going to play Auburn. Woo! But, that's about as big as you can get. And then they have this game, and the game is and Alabama wins or Auburn wins, and then everybody goes off the field, and celebrates the equality of all football players, and you don't even record the win or the loss. That's got nothing to. We were here together, and we enjoyed being together. That's not, that's not the way it works. That's
Exactly.
not the way it works at Navy or Army,
Right.
and 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 the problem is how do you reconcile the immense diversity of our country um, with the value system that is in place or was in place, which measured you by what you did, not by who you are.
Part of the problem also is if you have even a conversation like this, the people on the other side, the DEI backers, you're racist, you're
Oh,
sexist, you're homophobic, you're
yeah.
transphobic. And
Hmm.
nothing could be farther than the truth.
Yeah,
I don't care if a football team is 100% African American or not.
yeah.
If they deserve to be on that team, put them on the team.
Hmm.
I don't care if the faculty at Johns Hopkins University is 100% Black. If
Hmm.
they deserve to be in that faculty, let
That's
them be
right.
in the faculty.
That's
But
right.
like you said, it needs to be a meritocracy. We
That's right.
need to see who's doing the best on their exams, who's having the best outcomes, who is most engaged in
Hmm.
the field. And I
Hmm.
also feel that if there is a tie, like you've got a highly qualified
Hmm.
white candidate and a highly qualified Black candidate, and there's really no difference, maybe in that toss up, give the benefit to the
Yeah.
African American who's got a history of being deprived.
Make equality truly equal.
Exactly.
And there's three different sources of what makes us. And here I'm going to be a little preachy.
Let's hear it.
One is our family, okay? And
Mhm.
the family has to be involved in how that child develops, you know. And here in Alabama, they're getting rid of the cell phones for all the kids in schools. And I'm going, good, they need it. The
Yeah.
other one is your faith, religion. Okay, I'm a Christian, and I believe that all of the values in our world are determined by Scripture and Jesus and his disciples uh, not created them but announced them. What is truth?
Yeah.
Okay, what is good and what is bad, you know. And I can find you and people tell me, said Clayton, you can't find AI in the Bible. I said, no, man, but I can find the values by which you judge what they're doing in the Bible. Okay, two is the Bible, and three is your education. You know, education, family, and religion. That doesn't mean that I want to, throw all the Islamicists out of the country. I said, but just understand that you're living in a world in which our religion does not determine how good or bad you are. It determines your relationship to your God. Okay. And then you can take a course on religion and get into it. And as a historian, I go back and see. Well, somebody says it wasn't always good. What about the Civil War? I said the Civil War was terrible because more people were killed and wounded in the Civil War than in all the wars that the United States has participated in altogether up until the Vietnam War. And what about blacks who were slaves? I said slavery was terrible, but we got rid of it. We've gone through a catharsis and struggles that have attempted to make us more equal in a political and social sense that Jefferson and Washington and Franklin and others argued for. And Franklin said you got a democracy if you can keep it. In other words, he understood the human nature to want to be more centered on the individual. But you have to give something up as an individual to live in our society. You have to do some things that are not simply good for you, but good for society. And I think that's important. And that's not socialism. That's not communism. That's just simply the virtues that are preached in the Bible.
Right. Right. It's interesting. When immigrants came to this country previously, I guess in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and so
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
they wanted to assimilate. They
Oh,
learned the
yeah.
language, they
Yeah.
wanted to shed their accent. They many times changed their name so it would sound more Anglo-Saxon
Yeah. Yeah.
or American.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people want to keep their culture, and that's okay to a certain point, as
Mhm.
long as you don't want to destroy the culture that's
Mm.
here.
That's right.
And
That's
and
right.
that's the problem I see today is that people come to this country to change this country. You
Mhm.
came to this country because your country was a mess. My family came to this country because their country was a mess. People were starving to death,
Mhm.
because of the potato famine. So I
Mhm.
get it. I understand it. You want a better life. But they didn't come here to destroy it. And they
No, no,
didn't come here to fundamentally change it. So,
no.
what do you take on this new wave of immigration and of immigrants that are coming here and often illegally who want to change the basic structure of our country and now are able to elect officials who want to do the same thing?
We, let me be really clear here. We don't want those immigrants coming in.
Yeah,
And people go, well, you're the freest country in the world with the most chances and opportunities, and you can't do that. And I'm going, in the 1920s, we told no more Japanese or Chinese. We had immigration laws that said we don't want more of you.
right.
How that was racist? No, it wasn't racist. It wasn't ethnic. It was just the United States determining at the time, in the 1920s, that we have too many agents who are coming in and preserving their own way of life and being exploited here in California, blah, blah, blah. Bam, close it.
Right.
And immigration has always been a subject of some controversy, and it still is. But we just don't open the door and allow. Do you open the door to your house at night and say, hey, anybody come in here? I've got
Exactly.
plenty. I'm doing
Ex-
I'm doing really good. I've got $1 million in savings, blah, 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 and it's open. No, we don't do that. We lock
Right.
the damn door. Pardon my French.
No, exactly, exactly. And using a house analogy, it's great. If you did let too many people in the house would fall apart. People
Mhm.
would be seeking to take over the house. You'd run out of resources. And I almost feel like there should be an across the board immigration freeze that I don't care what country you're from.
I
We're
agree.
loaded with people right now. We have 100 million more people in this country right now than we had when I was growing up.
Oh,
When we were
yeah.
growing up, we had about 250 million people. Now we have about 350 million people. And it shows it's crowded. There's a housing crunch. Let the people who are here now assimilate, become Americans,
Mhm.
become ingrained in our culture and our
Yeah.
customs. And then 10 years from now, maybe we can start a very controlled process of
Uh,
letting
I,
people in. What do you think of that, sir?
I couldn't agree with you more. If you want to bring your old habits over here with you because you know that some of those old habits are social, family, religion, or whatever it was, hunger, like your family got or a potato famine, so they left probably
Right.
Germany, and came over here, or Ireland, but I
Yep.
talk about the Irish. Whew. Um, I like the Irish.
Yep.
But anyhow, you have to determine it, and then you have to kind of set up, and I think we can do this because we've done this in the past. You set up some ideals that people need to live by, political ideals. Equality is what? Equality is you're all equal. You're not all the same. I mean, here's the academic in me. You're not the same as I am. I'm not the same as my wife is. Blah blah blah.
Right.
But you have equal political rights, and those are
Right.
in the Constitution. But we struggled to make that Constitution. We had slavery at the time, and Thomas Jefferson had a slave mistress, and by his slave mistress he had children, and people go, "Well, he was a hypocrite." I said, "Well, Jesus and his disciples don't particularly like hypocrites, and I don't like hypocrites as well. But no, he wasn't a hypocrite. He was leading a life that had come into being with the importation of black slaves from Africa. We finally got rid of that slavery thing during the Civil War, but they were trying to reconcile all the differences and make it work within a framework of liberty and freedom. And those things, as you well know, carry a lot of meaning to different people. My liberty is different from yours, blah blah blah. Yeah, you can do a little bit of that, but at the basic, you have to accept the fact that if you're coming to this country, you need to you need to make some adjustments in the life that you led before to adapt. And if we go back to Ellis Island, which is probably when your people came over, they had to go through a structure of acceptance by the authorities. And if you were sick, bam, put you in a boat back to Ireland or Germany or
You were
China, wherever it was.
deloused at
Yeah,
Ellis Island. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it, and people go, well, that's not right. That's not respecting the dignity of the individual. I said, no, but that's respecting the dignity and the truth of the government that we put into place, which was radical. What they say, oh, how radical was it? We got rid of the monarch and we got rid of a parliament that was afflicting us, and even we even got rid of the state religion, the religion, the Church of England. Oh no, I said, no, we didn't get rid of it. We just said no church is going to be the Church of America, but everybody can worship equally. Oh, aren't those contradictory? I said, no, that's an example of that really brilliant thinking of compromise that our founders negotiated.
I
So,
think a big problem today is the media dividing us.
oh.
You've got the commentators on the left and the commentators on the right who are willing to rip your throat out verbally if you say something that could possibly be perceived as some kind of ism, whether it's racism,
Oh,
sexism,
that's right.
or whatever it is. And it's completely unfair. And people's interviews and views and sound bites are taken out of context.
Mhm.
So we're being fouled big time, or as the
Mhm.
president would say, bigly, by the
Yeah.
media right now, right?
And the way we treat the people who govern this country, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Trump. He's got a big mouth and he's got a big ego, but he's got the right ideas and he's making them come to pass. And you go, well, how can you support a guy like that? He wants to be the next king. He's the new Hitler. Oh my goodness. And I would use probably a different phrase other than "oh my goodness," but we're on television here. Um, how can you say that about him? I said because he is governing from a perspective that I understand is an honest representation of what this country is all about and what it needs to become. Restore it. I said, well, you're a historian, of course. You're always going to think, oh, it was much better back in my day. I said, no, I really fight that. I don't like that. It wasn't always better in my day. I grew up in the night. Well, whatever. I'm not going to tell you
Right. I
my
mean,
whole
people were
age, but
starving in our day, living in rooming houses in our day. I mean,
yeah,
people were really struggling when you were growing up and when I was
yeah,
growing up. People are
yeah.
the poorest person I can think of today, more or less. The working poor are richer than we had it growing up. I lived in a rooming house. We had a different family in every room. And
Hmm.
my dad made $40 a week working for the city of New York, and my
Yeah,
parents
yeah,
scraped together money to still send me to
yeah,
private school.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So people made, and I had two pairs of pants, literally growing up. I would alternate them. One day, wash them, wear them the next day. So people had real struggles back in the day. People don't realize. I think that's a problem with America today. They don't realize how good they have it. Things are great right now for the vast majority of people. Don't you
Yeah.
feel the same?
Yes, I totally agree with you. And what I really appreciate is when somebody pops up in the public sphere, he says something or does something that I think is really good. And this happened a few days ago. The quarterback from Indiana University was awarded the highest, you know, the award you can get in sports. And he turned to his mom and he thanked his mom. And he's a Cuban American. And she was so pleased. Poor thing was crying. And he said, that's who I owe it to. And I want you to know that. And that wasn't like that big mouth at Vanderbilt. I'm not even going to say his name, who has an ego that is, but I agree with you. The challenge is how to bring this to pass. And that's what this pushback book was about how this thing got started. And I have solutions in there too, Logan. I just don't shoot my mouth off and say, we need to do that. I said, here's a solution. I said, one of my solutions is to establish a college, call it Alpha College. And in Alpha College, you establish it according to the rules of Western civilization. That doesn't mean you disconnect from Asia or Africa. You use them as well. And you establish a college with the ideals that promote merit, that promote learning, true learning, and then deliver it out through the college and the university community, all the way down through the high schools and everything. And I have a few other solutions in there. In other words, I think you need to not we don't need simply need to you and I to go da 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 da. Da.
Yep.
We need to say this is what I would suggest doing, and do it. I think that's important for those of us who've been around for a while, who can go back to the 50s or 60s. Like I can go back to the 60s and going. And I didn't grow up in the South, but I was in school in the South in Durham, and I saw what was happening in the races. And one of my heroes is Martin Luther King Jr., who brought the subject up of equality and how we deal with it, and he put it within a Christian context of peace. So we're not going to have violence here. We're going to do this correctly. And then he was assassinated.
Absolutely. Judge people not by the color of their skin, but the content of their character. You and I are asking for nothing more than that.
Yeah.
How are they educated? What is their family background like? What is their belief system? I think that those are the pillars that make a great society, rather than simply choosing people by the color of their skin.
Right.
Right?
That's
It
right.
doesn't make sense to
That's
just
right.
say, well, you're skinny, you're tall, you're fat, you're green, you're purple,
Hmm.
and we're going to get a room together of people who are one's going to be short, one's going to be tall, one's going to be fat, one's going to be thin, one's going to be. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make
The
sense at all.
best and the brightest, and the examples you used right off the bat of the airline pilot, of the doctor, even Jimmy Carter entitled his autobiography. Do you recall it? Why not the best?
Why not the best?
You
Yeah.
know,
I
which was
voted for
kind of
Carter.
funny coming from him.
Yeah.
But
Then
but
I
I
voted
agree.
against him in the election after after we elected him. They came in the wake of the Nixon debacle.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, he rode a wave of anti-Nixon
He did.
sentiment, and they realized after that that maybe Nixon wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. Before I leave you, got a couple more minutes left, and it's in the news right now, so I want to get your viewpoints on this. Extreme violence. Whether it's the shooting in Australia or at Brown University. I mean, you're an educator. Can you imagine having to lock down your classroom because a gunman is in there?
I,
What
I
do you think's going on? Is this America coming apart at the seams? But of course, it's beyond America. We talked about Australia as well.
I honestly don't know what the answer is to why people do the things they do today. I mean, I can understand why people were frustrated in the past and did awful things, but what really irritates me is, and this may be a cause, is how people misinterpret the history of our past and say we're doing the same thing that Hitler did in the 1930s with anti-Semitism. Our president is not a Hitler. We don't practice anti-Semitism like he did and kill 6 million Jewish people in the Holocaust.
Right.
And they use examples from the past to justify the present, like radical Islamicists will use the old competition between Christians and Islam as their kind of their example to follow. And I said, no, yeah, we had a tough time, Christians and Islamicists, during the Holocaust. Not only the Holocaust, during going back in the history of raids by Christians on Europe, on the Holy Land. But we have always managed to reconcile our differences in a fashion that are, if if they're not violent, at least they're peaceful. And
Right.
I find it hard to believe. And I think, Logan, part of it is the failure of education to educate the young people to the world that we would like to see them believe in, that promotes love and forgiveness rather than hatred and violence. And so
Exactly.
that's my Christian answer to it.
Well, I was
That
going to say we need to adopt more of that Christian worldview.
I
I
agree.
mean, you
I
have to look
agree.
no further than the life of Jesus Christ to realize how we should be living our lives.
Amen.
And the fact that people look at violence as a solution and justify it. Charlie Kirk, 33 years old, an advocate of free speech, debating with college students. You're allowed to say anything you want. He put the topic out there. He would place down his mic. He is shot through the throat for what he said. And he never said anything that was intolerant.
Mm.
And people applaud it and celebrate it.
I,
And that's what's despicable.
I, I agree with you. I
Yeah,
mean, totally. To do that to him
yeah,
is a rejection of of your humanity.
yeah,
You know, it's
exactly.
like I see examples of people doing things to other people, and I'm going, how can they do that?
Yeah,
You know, I could see maybe running away from a big dog chasing you,
right.
but not committing the acts that you and I that I've just described in some instances that don't recognize that your antithesis, the people you're opposed, is a human being who 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 has a right to be here. You know, and
Exactly. All of us
not
have a right to be here. All of us have a right to speak our mind, and none of us should be executed for our beliefs
no,
or our
no.
speech.
I
This is a
agree.
powerful conversation. It is a powerful book. It is time to push back, folks. If you feel it is time to push back, here's a great starting point. The name of the book we've been talking about today, it's written by Lawrence Clayton. It is called Pushback. It is a timely and provocative collection of essays on America's most pressing cultural and political debates. Lawrence, as always, great to have you on the show today.
Thank you. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the chance to talk about things that are of common concern to us as members of a world that we want to not only preserve but extend
Exactly.
without jeopardizing anybody's liberty and freedom and all that stuff. But you gotta fit in a little bit. It's like in a
Exactly.
classroom. You know, you don't walk into my classroom and come out with an A. You have to do
Exactly.
something like write and read and explain it to me. And, oh, I have to do that? And I said, yeah, that's part of the deal. Mm,
Exactly. It's a brave new world. It's a bold new deal, but it is time to push back because mediocrity should not be awarded.
no,
Meritocracy should.
no.
I appreciate your time today. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.
Thank you.